This is lesson 8.9. It is finding the whole amount using a unit fraction, and it's a problem-solving lesson, so it is breaking down the word problems. So Ms. Khatib has 3 mammoth magnets. 1/4 of the magnets are from mammoth. How many magnets does she have altogether? So this part of the problem isn't asking about a part, it's now asking you what is the whole amount. So it's just kind of using the last lesson in reverse. And here's how you think about it. So the first sentence, there are 3 mammoth magnets. That's one piece of information. This 1/4 is the same item. It's still talking about the mammoth magnet. So this is the part, and this is also the part. So how do I use that to find out how many I have altogether? Well, from the last lesson, we should know that if we have 1/4 of, and we don't know that whole amount, but we do know that 1/4 is going to equal 3 magnets. You don't have to understand this part yet, but this is kind of like how your mind should break it down. What the fraction tells us, this is the part from the last lesson, is that the denominator is the number of groups. So when I'm talking about this, 1 out of 4, that's 1 group out of 4 groups. So if I start my diagram and I draw 4 groups, and then what do I think? Okay, so I have my 4 groups. 1 out of the 4, so I'm just talking about one specific group. 1 out of my 4 is what? Well, 1/4 of the magnets are from mammoth. Do I know how many mammoth magnets I have? Yes, right here. 3 magnets are from mammoth. So how many should I draw in the circle? I should draw 3. So now I've represented 1/4, that's 1 out of 4. 1/4 of the magnets are from mammoth. Does that match? Yeah, 3 magnets are from mammoth. So this point here, where you're setting it up, yes, it's a few extra minutes, a few extra steps, but you can go back and forth between the problem and really break it down. And really the first step you should think of when you're solving this on your own is just go straight for the fraction and represent it in a diagram. 1/4 is 1 out of 4 groups. And then you say, okay, what's inside of that one group? There's 3. Now I just finish adding in the number of items into the rest of my groups. So how many will be here? 3, and 3, and 3. So now I say, well, how many is that all together? 3, 6, 9, 12. That's 12 magnets. So my mystery number here is going to be 12. Here's how you check it. In the last lesson, what it would ask us is it would say 1/4 of 12 is blank. That's the last lesson. So what would we have done if it was this? We would have said, okay, I have 4 groups. I'm talking about one of them. I have 12 items. I'm going to split them into my groups evenly. So I'm thinking what's really happening is 12 divided into 4 groups, which is going to be 3 in each group. So the last lesson and this lesson are really the reverse of each other. So we're either finding how many are in the group or how many are total. So that was a lot of explanation. Here's some quick ones that you can try. Get some paper because you can't learn by watching, and pause it if you need to, and then check your answer. Okay, in this problem, Reem has 2 purple gel pens. 1/3 of her gel pens are purple. How many total gel pens does she have? So it's a lot of information, but really 2 of the sentences are talking about the same thing. So she has 2 purple gel pens. Right here is the 2 purple gel pens. And this 1/3 is also talking about her gel pens. So the 1/3 of her gel pens are purple. So those 2 sentences is about the purple gel pens. So what we want to know is how many total does she have? How many total pens? What we use is this fraction, 1/3. Remember that the bottom number, the denominator, tells us how many groups we are going to have. So if I write this out, my thinking, what I would write as my thinking if I match the problem would be like this. 1/3 of her gel pens, we don't know how many that is, so I'm just going to leave that as a blank box. 1/3 of her gel pens, which we don't know, but they are going to equal 2. So how do we do this? We draw a diagram. The denominator tells us how many groups, so there's going to be 3 groups. We're talking about one of the groups, so one of those groups, one of them, 1 out of the 3 is going to be purple, is going to be 2. So I'm going to put 2 in here. And I know that this is all going to be an even distribution. So how many will be in this group and in this group? There will also be 2 pens in it. I don't know the colors, but there's 2 pens in it. I do know that these 2 will be purple. So then if I just add up all of my parts, 2, 4, and 6, then I know that my missing number is 6. I have 6 gel pens. To check this, I work backwards. If I said 1/3 of 6 is 2, that's the same as saying I have 6 and I'm splitting it into 3 groups. Kind of like dividing. How many are in each group? There's 2 in each group. Okay, so that was still kind of a long explanation. Try one more. Remember to pause it and try it on your own. Remember, the big thing with this lesson is, what is this fraction telling you, or how does it help you draw the model? The denominator is the number of groups. 1 out of the groups is, we're talking about one of those groups. And then this 2 is how many are in the group. So here's one more. Okay, so we want to focus on the important information. Read it once to read it twice to understand. So Jabril has 4 basketball video games. 1/5 of his video games are basketball. How many video games does he have altogether? So 2 pieces of information are talking about the same thing in this problem. 4 basketball video games, there's 4 of them. And the video games that are basketball is also represented with the 1/4 fraction. So we think of it like this. This is how you would write it out in your thought process. 1/5 of his video games. We don't know how many video games he has, but that's what we're trying to find out. So 1/5 of this amount, 1/5 of them is going to be 4. So with our fraction, we're going to use that to draw a diagram. So the denominator tells us how many groups we have. So I'm going to draw 5 groups. And 1 out of the 5. So I'm focusing on 1 out of the 5 groups. Then I go back to my question. 1 out of the 5 groups, 1/5 of his video games are basketball. That means that in here, 1 group are the basketball video games. Also in the question, it tells me how many basketball video games he has. He has 4 of them. So how many will I put inside of this first group? I'll put 4 because he has 4 games. After I do that, I just add that into the rest of my groups. So here's the basketball video games. Here's the rest of them. And they all have 4. And then the last step is I add that all together. So 4, 8, 12, 16, and 20. So 20 games altogether. He has 20 games. Then I go back and check, does it make sense? So if he had 20 video games and 1/5 of them are basketball, so that means there's 20 games here. 1 out of the 5 groups, 1 out of the 5 groups is basketball. Is that going to be 4? And then I go back to my question, and yes, everything matches. So then that's how you would do it. And lastly, you need a sentence answer. So your answer would be, Jabril has 20 video games altogether. And that's it.